tuned in. G'day guys, what's cracking? It's Ralph here, and tonight we have gone out to the city because I want to see what the GoPro 10 can do in its stills photo function at 23 megapixels shooting at RAW with a long exposure function. So we're going to try 4 different methods tonight and put the long exposure on the stills through its paces and see if we can't come up with something really creative, really cool, give you some inspiration and see what's capable. See what's capable from an action camera that you should be doing action stuff with, not night street photography. It's going to be mad. Stick around. Alright, first up what we're going to do is put on a 30-second exposure with a minimum ISO of 100, maximum ISO of 800, so it can determine what sort of ISO we want. And we're going to shoot the tram as it comes past on a 30-second exposure. To do that, I'm going to detract. Is that right? Detract, intract, outtract. Pull out the legs, stick it on a tripod mount. I'm going to post it just here. I'm going to wait for it to be within range of where I think the shot should start, and I'm going to press go. And we're going to see what this camera can do with a big long bright light trail as it comes past. So the tram took 10 seconds to get past. He's got a countdown here. I had it on a 3-second timer, which I didn't realise, but it doesn't really matter for the sake of our experiment. It's about to pop on now, so I'm going to throw to the screen now. Well, as you can see, I think that's known as absolutely awful, so we're going to lower both ISOs down to 100, and I'm going to put the shutter on 20 seconds and see if that has better results. Well, that was bloody awful, wasn't it? So, what I'm going to do now is going to put it all the way back to a 5-second shutter, because I reckon that's about as long as I can get minimum and maximum ISO bang down to 100. So we are really using only the shutter to allow a much light in, and I want to use the shutter because I need some light trails. So that's where we're headed now. Gotta wait for a tram, gonna take a shot, and here it is. So there you go, that's not too bad. Works in 5 seconds. Really 5 seconds is your maximum for that sort of shutter exposure. So now what we're going to do after doing a long exposure, we're going to go to the second one, is panning. And what happens with panning is you have a slightly long exposure and you track, you open the shutter and you follow your subject through, and then you close your shutter, and the subject should be really clear and still in the middle, and everything else should be blurred in the background. Now I'm stuck, when you shoot with RAW, you're stuck on a wide extended focal length. I love vlogging in the city, crowds of drunk people wandering past. The challenge with shooting on RAW is you can only shoot on wide. You can't alter and use the other focal lengths that the camera usually gives you the opportunity to do, especially when you're on video. And the other fascinating thing is if you put this on auto timer, so 5 seconds is the quickest you can shoot. If you put it on auto, it then judges the amount of light of what's appropriate. And it turns out in this amount of light, 1 second is appropriate. So we're going to put it on auto and shoot auto as we do some panning and just see if it works. The way panning works is you have it on a timer. I'll probably use a second, maybe 2. And what I'm going to do is just follow my subject through as I press the button, and all you have to do is keep the center of the lens on the center of whatever you're shooting. It's easy, no worries, because you don't have any live preview or any way of doing that. So you're just going with the flow of the movement. Going to press go, no timer, going to shoot ISO max and min on 100 again. It's on a what's called a natural color profile. Before it was just too warm and it looked a bit sickly and a bit now I can cool that down in post. Nicer if you get it as accurate as possible in camera. It means less work and better quality in the long run. And we're going to see if we can come up with something. Who knows if it's going to work? Well, you'll see the images and you can tell me below what you think of them. I already think it's going to be rubbish, but we've got to try, right? We've got to try. That's not actually half bad, is it? Like, I'm really surprised. But I think what you need is when you're panning, you need whatever it is to be big and close to you. Otherwise, it's just going to be lost in the scheme of things. I'll do a little bit more, and if there's any other worthy shots, I'll put them up now. But we're going on to our third one, and our third one is intentional camera movement that I know some of you hate and others of you are intrigued by. We've now wandered down the road to a particular location that makes me very nervous to bring out any camera gear, especially when I'm by myself, but also to the most iconic spot, I reckon, on the Gold Coast Strip, and that is the Hard Rock guitar sign beside me. And what we want to do is I'm going to get the GoPro out, I'm going to put it on auto, which will give us about a 1 second exposure, and I'm going to shoot half of that second holding it still, and then I'm going to just do this. So basically I'm going to shoot it how I'm going to shoot it normally without any stabilization. Let's just start shaking. And the hope is that you will see clearly what it is, but it won't be super clear. It'll actually be artistically rendered. That's my go-to. And I'm a bit nervous about whether I should set the camera up to shoot me doing it, but stuff it. For you guys tonight, seeing as you tuned in, I'm gonna do it. Interestingly, if you try any of the other photo modes, something fascinating takes place, and that is that the stabilization built into the camera, so you don't, when you're shooting stills, you don't get a chance to put hyper smooth on or anything like that, but the stabilization that's built into the camera, as well as the speed at which the shutter works, means it's impossible to take a blurry photo unless you go night mode with an extended exposure. That's a credit to you, GoPro, that anyone can just pull this out, snap a photo, whether it's dark or light or whatever, and it just comes out. But watch it with night mode. Night mode gives you longer exposures, which means things have the potential to get blurry or you see a lot of movement, which is really exciting, I think. Now I realise intentional camera shake is not everybody's cup of tea, so thanks for persisting and staying with me. Some of you are like, it's just blurry rubbish, and others of you are like, exquisite art. Alright, no one's saying it's exquisite art, but it's an interesting form of photography to have a go at. Now, if you're really interested in still sticking around, I suggest you subscribe, because there's more stuff that happens like this as we try and delve into the creativity of photography. And that leads me to the last mode, adventure, challenge. And what I want to do is use a single exposure to take multiple exposures. Like what? So I'm only going to hit the button once. I'm going to have a 5 second exposure, but I'm going to move the camera and pause, and move the camera and pause, and as I move it, I'm going to cover it up so it's black, and then release it. So what we're basically doing is we're exposing a single photo, but we're taking 3 photos. And so I'm going to try with our Hard Rock sign behind me. You can do this with any camera, but you put the long exposure to 5 or so seconds. You can do it for much longer, and you basically put your hand over it, completely blacks out what you're shooting. And what you really have to remember is when you're shooting something that's darker, it needs more seconds to capture the light. When you're shooting something that's really bright, it needs just a glimpse. And so you could say, I'm going to shoot here because it's quite light, because of the light. I have 5 seconds, and I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah? And because of the long exposure, I'm limited to 5 seconds or nothing. So because of the long exposure, you actually can control the shutter speed with your hand. Nifty little trick. You won't get amazing quality photo, but you will get creative, and the more you practice, the better quality those shots will be. I'm going to put those photos up now, and you can let me know in the comments whether you think this has been a worthy endeavor to partake in with the GoPro Hero 10. I realize it's not made for these things, but it's really cool that you can do it. Imagine like carrying around a camera that's this big in your pocket and not all this gear that just you feel like a madman about to jump on a tram who screams at you he's going to pinch. But it's been fine. It's been fine. It's fine. And for those of you that have stuck out this long, you're noticing that the beard is a little bit shorter. And that's not because we've had some interesting comments on the beard. That is because it was getting wild, and so I tried to trim it, but I trimmed it a bit too much here. So I trimmed it here a bit too much, and then I trimmed it here a bit too much. And well, you know the rest of the story. I lost an inch. I lost an inch. That's solid growth. It's been going on for quite a while. Thanks so much for being part of this crazy, ridiculous adventure into creative photography. I really appreciate you guys. And those of you that have been contemplating joining, if you would like to consider that, there's a tab down below. You can hit that, you can follow along, and I'd be just stoked that you would join me and support me in this endeavor as we try and stretch our creativity into the art of photography. Thanks so much, everybody. Bye. I think someone's in trouble. Glad it's not me. Oh, there's another police car coming past. It's interesting, it feels like there's a lot of tension in the city tonight. It's really quiet, but there's a lot of tension. There's this kind of eerie feel. Woof!